She had managed to compliment and insult the bakery all at the same time, and yet somehow left Charlotte eager to please her. Such evil was almost impressive. "The usual, yes, please." He slid his phone into the back pocket of his jeans and pulled his wallet from the other side. No ring on his tanned left hand. A few weeks ago, she had wondered if maybe he was a single dad, and the sweets were for his daughter. She usually had a pretty accurate radar for picking out fellow single parents. But all of his comments over the last month or so hadn't added up to that deduction. "Melissa said to tell you thanks. She said the cookies this week were even better than last. Melissa said she hasn't had a cookie this good since high school." Melissa was one lucky woman. A wave of guilt pressed on Charlotte's shoulders, familiar and tangible. Had she been too flirty with this mystery man, considering she knew he wasn't available? Charlotte had been on the other side of that equation. The rugged, football-playing, smooth talker she'd dated her senior year in college hadn't been entirely honest about his relationship status. In other words, he'd outright lied to her face and was engaged to someone else. Charlotte ended up in the role of the other woman, the homewrecker. And even if it had been unintentional, it was both painful and guilt-inducing, and she never intended to go that route again. Once she found out the truth, that was the end of it, despite the positive sign on the pregnancy test. She would go it alone as a single mom, for better or worse. She was done with the handsome, charming types who knew, along with the rest of the female population, that they were handsome and charming. As she told Zoe every time her daughter asked where her future stepfather was, they were waiting for God to send them a safe, predictable nerd. Preferably one who bought baked goods for her, not for another woman. Charlotte slipped the snickerdoodles into the bakery's signature turquoise and brown box, then removed her plastic glove and punched the buttons on the register. He was already handing her a $5 bill. At this rate, he might as well start a tab. "Listen, there's something you should know." He darted a glance over his shoulder at the picture window, then back at her, a sudden seriousness lighting his hazel eyes. "There's sort of this wedding, and—" Wedding. Her stomach nodded. Of course. So Melissa was a fiancée. She dropped the money into the register and slid out his change, the quarters clanging loudly against the metal drawer. Why on earth did men not wear engagement rings the way women did? It wasn't fair to not be able to tell at a glance that a man was taken. Still, it didn't matter. Not really. This man wasn't safe. Not judging by the things he did to her stomach. And while he might be a little predictable with the every Tuesday cookie thing, he wasn't a nerd. Not by far. Charlotte needed safe for her and Zoe. This guy was a 5-alarm fire. Wedding! Right! She fought for her most professional smile as she handed him his change and receipt, trying not to imagine what he'd look like in a tuxedo at the end of a long church aisle. "Congratulations!" Her mind raced through a blur of images, snippets of conversation pulled from their interactions over the past several weeks. How in the world had she known his favorite color was green, and that he loved desserts with extra nuts, and that he liked camping in Arkansas, yet didn't know he was getting married? No. He looked over his shoulder once more at the door, lowering his voice. "It's not for—" "Here it is!" The door to the doughnut flung open as if rocked on its hinges by the force of the proclamation. A short, stick-thin brunette rushed inside, flaunting a white tank top with the word bride spelled across the front in hot pink rhinestones. On her heels trailed a guy in a ball cap and ripped jeans, who mouthed the words, "I'm sorry," as they entered. This had to be Brittany, the bridezilla who had the appointment for the cake tasting. She was early, and even louder in person than she'd been on the phone. Charlotte pasted on her most patient, professional smile, one she'd mastered over years of donating free pastries to school bake sales. She refused